Hello, fellow curious creators out there. This is Mike Kepka, the Curious Creative, coming to you with another episode of your favorite podcast where we talk about results-based video strategies that show real returns for our clients. Today, we have with us Derrick Lorah, co-founder of Flagship Visuals, based in Virginia Beach, Virginia, where they say they are a production company that think like an agency. Derrick got his start in the video and filmmaking world while filming his friend skateboarding. One thing led to another, and now he and his business partner Matt are 11 years into the real life adventure that we're calling video strategy. Derrick, so great to have you here. How are you doing today?
Doing great. Yeah, thanks for having me on the Curious Creative. I'm excited to chat with you today, man.
You're listening to The Curious Creative with your host and video expert, Mike Kepka. So Derrick, I understand you guys have a company mantra that you are a production company that thinks like an agency. What does that mean?
Yeah, so it's something that's evolved over time. You know, we are going on year 11. My business partner, Matt Schreigar, founded Flagship Visuals in 2014. We've both been in the industry since the, early 2000s, getting our start, cutting our teeth way back when with skate videos and, being able to, during the DSLR revolution, sort of turn that hobby into a business and a career. But getting our start in 2014, we were just a traditional turnkey video production company. But what we started to see over the years as we've evolved, and really over the last 5 years, is that people are looking for more than just a service provider, but they're really looking for a strategic partner. And we really saw a gap in the market with other video production companies similar to us, where they would just think in terms of like the tool that they're providing or the service that they're providing, and think of it like, yeah, it's a one-day production, here's the video that you want, and not really thinking strategically about it and really getting underneath the pain point for the client and starting not at, hey, what's the estimate or what's the quote or what's the scope of work for a one-day production in a video, but what are your pain points? What outcome do you want? What ROI do you want, from this video? And so we just started intuitively asking those questions to the brands that we work with. And we also, work with great agency partners too that have, helped us in that understanding. But that's what we really saw is people are not after like a video per se. They really want an outcome. And a marketing outcome at the end of the day. And uncovering that pain point really helps us inform the strategy and the creative of what that video, ultimately becomes. So that's what I really mean when we say, we're a video production company, because those are our roots, but we think like an agency. So there's that strategy that's informing what the video ultimately turns into.
Sounds like you're talking about my business, Derrick. I mean, I have been telling everybody the same thing for the last year. I mean, I actually get really excited when people say, like, I suspect you do, queries from people in the world, and they go, oh, we need this video for an event that's in la, 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 la. And I'm like, okay, great, but tell me what you really need, because we certainly can cover that event. But what we're doing is strategy, and our whole goal is to figure out what kind of content we're creating and how that's going to work for you. So I hear that we have you want to talk about a couple of clients that you are pretty close with. And I like to sort of run through. First thing I want to talk about is maybe how did that creative process start? Are you at the table with them, and how did they first come to you? And then how does that translate into what you just said, where you're actually talking about strategizing on what kind of content to create with them instead of just a one-off?
Yeah. So I think it ultimately starts, from the moment that you have a prospect on a call, right? And you're building rapport, building trust, speaking differently, asking questions behind the question, and not just talking about ourselves and saying, here's the services we offer. Here's our, like you and me, both, I'm sure in our time have both given treatments and case studies and different things that talk all about us and show all of the different things that we've done. And that's great. And there's a place for that and a time for that, 100%. But in 2025, good work is par for the course. There's 20 other companies that do it just as good or even better. What we, again, have found is those companies are pitching themselves, and they're not really trying to advocate on behalf of the customer and really digging into what the customer's pain point is. So it starts in the sales call, in that first discovery call I have with a client. And then that just looks like, really advocating for them, the outcome that they want or might not even know that they want, and building that trust rapport from the beginning. And, with video, we're dealing with a lot of times really large budgets, an experience that can be high stress, high stakes. And so really easing them throughout the process is another thing that builds trust. And then especially when they're on set with us, they see how we operate. And then when the final product, it's like, okay, once we get that first engagement, that successful engagement off the ground, we have a trust rapport that we've built. And we have some clients that have been with us, since our, founding back in 2014. And it's just that trust engagement after engagement that starts. And so it's really been day one. And like I said, we've sort of stacked and you learn some things along the way. And like I said, really over the last 5 to 6 years has been where we've been asking and just saw like, hey, like we really need to be in the mind of the marketer or the agency if they don't even have an agency. A lot of times it's a one person, marketing team that we're dealing with, and they have a bunch of different things that they're trying to problem solve. And so if we can do the thinking for them and bring our expertise to bear of knowing what works in the video side, it just adds that much more value to what we're bringing to the table. So I don't know if that answered the question specifically.
The clients we've been working with the last year, I mean, we are just like you acting as the agency. So we're actually working with the marketing and the comms people. And when you explain that to them, sometimes I'm waiting for a couple of things to hopefully come through. And when you explain what the goal is, they kind of have this sigh of relief. Like,
yes.
Oh, wait, no longer do we just need this video component. This team is going to take on the whole thing. And like I think you just said, the end goal is not just pretty. Everybody can do pretty, but to actually say, hey, we're going to do the work for you once we get pretty made, right? Or, I mean, mostly the way we're working these days, I don't know about you, but we're setting up for a couple of days of production, and then we turn that into lots of little spots. If you're doing stuff for big agencies, maybe that's not the case.
No, absolutely. I can even speak to that because, it's, our name is Flagship Visuals, and I always tell people like, hey, we're gonna always achieve that flagship product, but we always want to be thinking about multiple deliverables, and we're not just solving for one thing. And I think as we've seen the market sort of evolve, we have done and continue to do, and we just wrapped last week a commercial campaign where it's like, hey, here's a one hero 30-second spot. But those days are shrinking more and more and more with brands who have sort of a social first mindset where content's king. And we need to be squeezing as much content as possible out of every single production that we're on. So we're always, even if the client's not asking us that, we're asking that question. We're saying, what else can we drive value in on this production and be thinking about holistically? So totally in agreement with you there.
All right, let's turn this into some real life scenarios. Talk to me about Real Truck. That's at the top of my notes here. What do they do? What did you do for them? And what are we going to talk about?
Yeah. Real Truck has been a client of ours. It's direct to brand. And I think it's helpful to, to just set the stage for, Flagship. Throughout the years, we've been in different industries. We've tried to niche down. We've tried to say, okay, we're going all in on tourism, or we're going all in on lifestyle, or, a big one of ours more recently within the last 4 years is, tactical and the firearm and defense industry. We're going all in on that. And, what we found is we just really understand the customer journey at the end of the day for any brand that has a product or a cause that they're championing and want, the video that we're making for them to have a direct result. And we're really good at understanding that for brands in tons of industries. And so we've been in industries, like I already listed those brands, but lifestyle oriented brands, product driven brands. We've been in the tech industry. We're, putting together a shoe launch for a fitness brand in a couple of weeks. We just wrapped up a tourism spot. And then the company that you brought up, Real Truck, has been a great brand. They are actually in the OEM space and third party space for truck accessories. And so I just want to say that to people who are looking to niche down. sometimes it's not niching down in the industry. Sometimes it's niching down in really your messaging and what you're bringing to the table. And that's what we've done. We've niched down in our messaging and really understanding that we are that, A to Z solution for those brands that have a product that they need to bring to their customer base and want video to be a part of that marketing journey. And so Real Truck approached us for that. We've been fortunate enough to do 3 campaigns with them in the last 14 months that have brought us really all over the US. The first campaign was a summer campaign that we did, and we did it out in the West Coast. And the West Coast had a huge landscape where we were in the mountains one day, the next day we were in the desert, the next day we were in the suburbs. And we were really able to, because of, where we were, able to highlight different persona journeys for their audience. And that was one of the things that I was just talking about, Mike, was, they came to us and wanted a 30-second and a 15-second cut down. And we said, what if we could actually have persona journeys for each of the people that you're trying to market towards? So we're not trying to do all eggs in one basket, but we can actually get really, really specific and say, okay, cool, we're going to target, more of the mom DIYer with this, and, get specific in that targeting. And we're going to have your enthusiast off-roader out in the desert, that's doing, an off-roading adventure out in the desert. And then we're going to have a family that's doing, an overlanding excursion. And really, trying to not think about it holistically as, what would be typically like a brand anthem, or like, hey, here's your brand tagline campaign idea for the year. But how can we get that to, again, give more for the client from that standpoint?
Tell me about that interaction with the client. When you pitch that idea, did they say, no, we don't have the budget for that? Or were they just like wide open? How did that go?
Yeah, it's, again, I try to address pain points out the gate. Like, I'm a firm believer in sort of almost trying to think ahead of around the corner and saying, like, hey, I know that budget's tight on this one, or we're capped at this, but I still think we can squeeze this out and do it within budget. Let's think about it this way. And so you kind of remove any of the pushback that they might have. And, I always use the word brain calories, like reduce the brain calories for them, reduce that cognitive dissonance of, I'm not giving them work to think about where I'm saying, hey, what do you think about personas? And then now they're having to do everything. But I'm saying, hey, what if we turn this mom into its own thing, and turn this DIY family into its own thing, and turn this, overlanding into its own thing, and sort of making it an easy yes or no at the end of the day. And again, that's on the sales cycle, making it an easy yes or no, all the way down to the creative ideation, making it a yes or no. And so I feel like I'm pretty good at knowing, what the client's thinking through and what their pushback might be, and trying to already think about, like, hey, that pushback isn't even an issue in this because I already thought through that.
Where did those spots go? Did they run distribution and ad spend on that one? And
yeah, they did. They did run distribution and ad spend. Over the last year, I would say, is we're trying to bring more of that in-house through both partnerships and under the hood. But they had an internal team that was handling and managing that. And so it was a campaign that was distributed on national TV spots, regional TV spots, gas station TV, as well as, online digital pre-roll, Meta, YouTube, etc.
Case studies were really important. Were they able to give you any feedback on how those ideas proved themselves, or did you get any of that?
We have numbers and metrics, and, it was definitely the most successful. That first initial campaign was the most successful campaign. Truth be told, this was after a rebrand. So before Real Truck was Truck Hero. And they're a well-known veteran in that industry, sort of like the leading accessory sort of manufacturer and online retailer when it comes to that. So this was their first foray into, leading with their new brand and having a campaign launch. And it was completely successful. I have to go back and look at the, actual metrics, but we try to chase metrics that we are in control of. And for those ones, we weren't necessarily in control of that.
You're not in control. I mean, and then people, yeah, they're shy about it or don't exactly understand what you're asking for. I've been there. Tell me about Operation Smile. What's the difference with that client?
Again, it goes back to niching down, right? Like we really, have any client that really needs to get a message out there that has a customer, whatever that looks like. And even for this, right? For Real Truck, you contrast it and it's like, okay, what is the average customer spending annually with Real Truck, and that's how they're thinking about that. And here's our front runner flagship products that we really want to push in this spot. And they sort of have that customer avatar in mind. With Operation Smile, now you're going in the NGO nonprofit space where they're trying to get donors and people to donate, both one-time donations as well as businesses that are donating, lifetime donors, sort of legacy donors, wealthy donors, all the way down to a $10 donor, right? And so it's a little bit different of a mindset too. And so with this one, we were able to approach this creatively, and the strategy as well, and direct to brand. So an agency wasn't bringing this to us, and they had this idea. They were just hitting their 40-year anniversary. I think it was 40 or 50. I'd have to go back and confirm that, but it was either 40 or 50. And they had this idea of legacy. A lot of what Operation Smile does, what they're known for, is surgery in underdeveloped countries completely for free. They show up, they, are completely funded. These surgeons come in, they volunteer, and they, do surgery on children with cleft palates. They do more than that. They do a lot of stuff to make sure that they're within the community, but that's what they're most, known for. Because as you can imagine, the before and after of that is just absolutely incredible and moving. But there is this sort of idea of this fly in, fly out, and they really wanted to, show the legacy of what they've changed. So we had this opportunity to fly to Guadalajara, Mexico, and show and interview one of the children who was now an adult in going into university and starting their career. In contrast, this is what legacy looks like. This is what transformation looks like, whereas this person who would not have been given the same opportunities, be it cultural, people don't even understand even the cultural pressure of, what can be perceived as, even a deformity culturally in some of these places where, we don't necessarily face that in the United States, but in underdeveloped countries, it can be seen almost as a generational curse that you would have this. And so it's not just a cosmetic thing, but it's literally can stunt their whole development in life. And so this person who on what we changed on the outside, what that did for their confidence on the inside, and completely course corrected. We were able to interview her mom, interview her, and there was this really beautiful moment where she volunteers at the Operation Smile facility there, and there was this beautiful moment of a child pre-surgery where she was saying, "I know where you've been. I was there," and there was this shared moment on camera. And the client said, that was one of the most beautiful moments that we've ever captured on camera, period, is this person, again, talking about legacy, this person who, the surgery that happened 15 years prior is now going, into career, but is also able to sort of bring that next generation up and inspire hope through their story. And we were able to capture all of that, and show that and utilize that. And what they were able to do with the video is that was now able to be utilized at conferences to get donors to donate. That was able to be used on their email campaigns to drive donations up, and to be able to be utilized with their larger donor base or their higher donor base on some of the more wealthy donors, as more of a direct connection of this is what legacy looks like. This is what your money, it's not just, oh, it changed. Look at this before and after, and now we're fly in, fly out. But this person's life has been changed forever.
And before that, they had run sort of stop in the moment. I would imagine kids going through procedures or getting ready for procedures.
Absolutely.
Or procedure. And so sort of an added way of thinking.
This
and
was completely new.
The long-term effect really sounds great. I imagine the donors really kind of hit on that. Okay, chainsaws, my friend. Tell me about chainsaws.
Yeah, so one of our longest standing client is Steel. They're most well known for their chainsaws. They're in multitude of products now in the outdoor space. They have a really, really good market share on the professional landscaper. And they're also making a really large inroad on the consumer market as well. And then they, have been around for 100 years, in talks right now of what we're going to do for that 100-year celebration. But they're also now going into, the battery space. I've been in that for 10 years, and it's been really cool to see that, sort of grow grow, and they're a very mission-oriented company. And even the contrast of that type of client, being more of a dealer distributor model versus like an e-com retailer where you and I might go into a Home Depot or a Lowe's to, get whatever piece of equipment. And it's really a race to the bottom market, whereas they're sort of in this category of their own of, you want the whole steel experience. Again, think of it like Apple versus, whatever you would get in Cricket Wireless or 7-Eleven, off the shelf, right? And being a part of telling that journey, we've had so many different opportunities to tell the journey from the landscaper perspective. We were just out in Governor's Island in New York City, showing what it takes to manage, a 200-acre plus area in a concrete jungle, hundreds of feet away on this little island, with this beautiful backscape that we were able to capture of people really within the confines of nature with a backdrop, and showcasing that story of a day in the life of the landscaper crew.
Tell me about the power of that extended relationship. I often will have new clients come to me and I'll say, hey, I'm in this for the long run. Let's get started with something small, and then let's see if we're going to build it, right? Because for me, it's that relationship that really, really is what helps us as the agency really understand better what their goals are. And those even may shift over time. And so understanding that we can create different things to meet different goals at different times, even as they evolve, we're all evolving together. How has that been with Steel? Have they, are you doing different things for them now than you were 10 years ago?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's been a growing relationship. And again, you got to think 10 years is a long time. And I'm sure, you've been doing this for a long time too. You sort of understand like the win of getting a brand that you wanted to work with. And then 2-3 years down the road, the person you have the connection with goes to another company. And that's great because they might take you with that other company, or they get out of the industry altogether, but then you have to sort of re-earn that relationship. So we've had to navigate that a few times throughout different companies, but especially Steel, being with them 10 years. And I think that is ultimately like what sets us apart, right? Is we understand like the person on the other end of the project ultimately. And it's, of course, what's important to the brand, but it's what's important to this person. What is this person really after in terms of what they want their thumbprint to look like at the company that they're a part of, and want to sort of, stand apart from the rest. And again, it's really understanding, we're in the people industry.
Tell me, from your experience working with these clients in particular, what has resonated with their differing audiences? Like, let's go with Steel. What has been the content you've created that seemed to hit it home for them as far as who they were trying to reach, and how did your efforts kind of speak to that?
Yeah, number one is German engineering is huge with them, right? So it's like they're on the cutting edge of technology. As Steel, really nothing compares to that, right? So it's making sure that that's captured with class, with elegance, bringing them, even when we first started, none of their videos sort of had that like anthemic, cinematic edge. I can even think back in 2016, we went completely rogue, to be completely honest, with the project where we hadn't quite earned their trust yet. And we did what they wanted on paper, but then we did a director's cut. They ended up using the director's cut. That director's cut was a brand anthem for them that they turned it into a national commercial that aired. It was never even the intent. And they have a dealer network of over 1,000 dealers, and they have a dealer summit every year. They played that anthem, and that anthem got a standing ovation. So their dealer is just as much their customer as the end user is the customer. And I think that really highlights what we tapped into. Again, it sort of gave those early stages where we're like, hey, yeah, they wanted a video and they asked us to do X, but I really think that Y is the better path. Now, we didn't put all our eggs in the Y path. We knew we could still do X if it came down to that.
Well, you're a professional, Derrick. You gotta do the as we used to say in the newspaper world, save your ass shots. You just go in, you do the professional stuff, and I think for me that's often where the creative stuff starts to happen, is once you know you have some things in the bag. It's also why on my set I think you'll find me pushing record before I say action, and I can't stand it when somebody says cut, because I don't actually mean cut. I just mean stop. And we don't we don't actually stop the record for a while. Because every once in a while you get that gold at the end of the script or the interview. I wanted to know what's in the future for you. You're talking agency games, you're talking all sorts of strategies that seem to be working. Tell me the future for you and data and results based strategy, because that's what this podcast is all about. And I have a feeling you're on your way, right? Tell me what you plan to do different in the coming months and years.
Yeah, it's really doubling down. Our industry's seen a big change with AI. There's a lot of, doomsday speak, and there's a lot of opportunity. I look at it like I look at everything. Number one, sticking our head in the sand is not going to do us any good. Number two, being doomsdayer and just ignoring change is not going to do us any good. So how do we go full tilt? How do we embrace this? Think about the DSLR revolution. Think about that pulling the rug under. Think about NLEs back when everything was gate kept behind money in terms of really, it was gate kept. And DSLRs and NLE editing really democratized that creativity. And it's happening, now with AI. But AI ultimately is a tool. And what we're seeing and how it's affecting Flagship and what we sort of see is we are a specialized, focused on video content and serving up the best video content for our customers. And that starts first and foremost with a strategy. Then it rolls into creative, pre-pro, production, post-production, but then delivery and results and that implementation. And it really should be that circle, right? And that wheel that keeps feeding back into itself. The more that we do that, the more data that we get, the more data that informs our next strategy and how we're going to do that and how we're going to refine. And I only see, with the onset of AI, us being able to really fine tune that even better for the client. And so, Flagship is really doubling down as an agency first video agency, or a video production company that thinks like an agency, but we're not veering away from what we do with video content. We still think that content's king. We still think that video is the best way to connect to the audience. And we're not losing that authenticity just because we're utilizing whatever the latest and greatest tool is, but we're just making sure that we're gap filling, reducing the friction for the client, and we're outcome oriented and results oriented. And that's what our customers want at the end of the day. And if we're winning with that, then we're winning together.
Great. I can't wait to see the updates. I had my first update earlier this week with a different guest, and I can't wait to bring you back on to see how we shift into the actual data tracking and return. Okay, it's your job again, Derrick. At the end of every episode, I give my guest a chance to give us one golden nugget. What do you got for us?
Anyone out there in this space, one thing that I tell our team, and again, they'll roll their eyes if they see this, but something that's been true for me is just this one sentence, which is to understand that the job is not the job. And what I mean by that is, as creatives, we can get so in the weeds of, this is the thing we have to do. This is the thing that I have to refine. This is the thing that they've, hired us for. But again, like I've already said in this, understand there's a human on the other side. That's the real job, is solving the pain point for them. The video, the project, the campaign is just a tool to do that. But the real job is the experience that you're giving them. The real job is the gaps that you're filling for them. The real job is what friction can you reduce for them? And that's what makes it a net win. Good work is par for the course today. If you're not doing good work, then you're not getting admitted into the theme park. But the job behind the job is the real win, and that's how we'll continue winning in the onset of whatever comes in the advancement from a technological standpoint, or the shifting with marketing trends.
Well, there you go, curious creatives out there. We have spent another 30 minutes talking about results-based video strategy. Derrick, thanks so much for being on the show, and we'll catch you again soon.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Mike, for having me. Have a good one.